Having said that, we have seen the government do so much for Western Kenya when it comes to sugar issues. We have seen a lot happening in Mount Kenya concerning coffee issues. So anything touching on the port of Mombasa must also be, brought to the attention of the leaders. And the leaders are the CPG and the Council of Governors and the Jumuiya ya County za Pwani. Chair, I'll talk about our natural resources and I combine it with national parks. Recently, the president announced a 50-50 revenue share between national parks, that's host counties, and national government. Chair, we are in support of this revenue share, but we're asking this committee to bring to Parliament an amendment to the law so this can indeed find itself in law, so that this sharing can start as soon as possible. But having said that, we still have an issue with Savo East, Savo West. The park has encroached into human settlements, and therefore we would like the redrawing of the Savo boundaries so that then we can separate human settlement and the parks. I'll talk about the blue economy and specific regional investments. Chair, the same emphasis that is put in other regions of this country on their resources, we like more or additional funding to be put in the blue economy. We like additional funding to be put to revive our cashew nut industry, Bixa and coconut industries. We see a lot of emphasis currently with the current government trying to revive a lot of other things, agricultural and such like activities. Want the same zeal applied for coast region. Let's go to land and historic injustices. The coastal people have suffered the most when it comes to land injustices in this country. And we know the current president campaigned in the platform of settling the squatter issue. Chair, this has remained rhetoric for a long time. We don't see budgetary allocation to settle this issue. We have absentee landlords that still claim ownership of these lands. So government should put money aside in every budget, including the supplementary budget, to settle the squatters issue in coast region once and for all. In addition to that, we would like a review of Tarda land boundaries to protect the Tana Delta Ramsar sites and community settlement areas. We have an issue in Tana River, Chair.
Sorry, Mheshimiwa, just to let you know, you have exactly 8 minutes to go.
Okay. So we're also asking for, there's a big land in Tana River and Kilifi, Agricultural Development Corporation owned Galana Kulalu, currently owning 1.6 million acres of land. We're asking that through this committee, they do release 1 million acres to go to the people of Tana and Kilifi. Because honestly, this is a historic injustice. Only 1.6 million acres by Agricultural Development Corporation is not a good thing. Allow me to go to, because of time, equity and inclusivity. Chair, Kenya belongs to all of us, and every citizen must feel part and parcel of this country. But we know appointments that have been made by successive regimes have disadvantaged the people of Coast Region. And these appointments are not only restricted restricted around cabinet appointments and principal secretaries. We are talking about heads of parastatals. We are talking about ambassadors. We are talking about the entire formation of government. We are saying as Coast Parliamentary Group that equity and inclusivity must be applied across board. And having said that, Chair, we know recently we had a recruitment by Kenya Revenue Authority where 2 communities got over 70% of those positions. We are recommending as CPG that when government agencies and parastatals, particularly even when it comes to security agencies, KDF, there to ask young people running, go to the recruitment centers. They should publish the numbers in advance so that we know what numbers will be picked from what sub-county, what county. Because we understand that most of these numbers, when recruitment is done and it happens, many areas are disadvantaged. Their numbers go to other areas. And therefore, we're asking the law should be changed to have, before recruitment, numbers published. And including KRA, before they go for recruitment, let them publish how many they're taking from where and which criteria they're using. So that after that, and that report is submitted to Parliament, and after recruitment, another report is submitted to Parliament. I submit.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa.
Honorable Chair, pengine,
Chair.
if they're done, sorry.
Yes, Mheshimiwa.
If they're done, they could use the many ways to introduce themselves, not the politicians.
Maybe.
I think Mheshimiwa from Tana River has something to say.
Yes,
Yeah,
Chair.
kindly,
Chair,
Mheshimiwa.
on the issue of National Park, you happen to be the member of the Energy Committee in last Parliament.
Yes.
I think you know many people lost their life through KWS and what have you. You know, Taita Taveta and Tana River has been shrinked in so many ways. So the issue of review of boundaries for national parks should be a priority. Also on that Galana Kulalu issue, where they are saying it is project, people are living there already. But we are saying 600,000 acres to remain with the government, but 1 million to be released to the people of Tana and Kilifi, because already they are there. Also, Chair, on the issue of the boundary of the coastal region, coastal region, the boundary has been drawn for our forefathers and the colonial government to use their wise wisdom. So now there is a lot of encroachment and a lot of dispute surrounding those areas. So, Chair, we are recommending the initial boundary to remain intact. If people of Kenya want to live in coast, they come as the people of Kenya, but encroaching on boundary should be stopped, that one. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
I think we still have, through Chair, we still have some few minutes. I'd like to
No,
touch.
that includes a time for questions. So you need to, your time is literally up.
Yeah,
So-
just to emphasize on the port issue, I'd like to contribute as the Mombasa County MP on privatization or concession of the ports. What we are asking is that we have an empty space, a greener space. We don't want anyone to come and take our already infrastructured space where we are getting more returns, only to take for lesser returns. So we are asking, we need more investors, yes, but let them go and do their own infrastructure in an empty space. Let them start business there. We will welcome them. But stopping other people from doing their business and stopping our youth from getting employment, because definitely they're going to take over the port. It's going to be their private property, and they're going to take control over the port. So we are asking them to take an empty space, do their own infrastructure, and start their business from there. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa. Thank you. Any other issue? Senator Aaron and then Senator Honorable Hassan.
Just quickly, I welcome CPG. Many of them are people that are personally known to me. They are colleagues for many years. Therefore, I doubt not their capacity to represent their people. But I have something that keeps on bothering me, especially on the line of the port and all this conversation about privatization and concessioneering of any government institution and facilities. I've listened to you. I've had opportunity to listen to members of parliament from the sugar growing region on this conversation as well. The problem that I have is that when I listen to you, when I listen to them, you ask questions just like your citizens as well. Yet you have a premium platform that they don't have in the form of parliament. Has any of you tabled and requested the Ministry of Transport, for example, to come and explain to you what exactly process are they undertaking? What are your fears? Have they been addressed? so that we don't politicize, because many a times it ends up being a politicization of very important issues that can end up bringing development to the very people that you represent. And, because many of them may not have the level of understanding that you have as a leader, they will cheer you on, but eventually you leave them in a far worse situation than they already were in. Case in point, let me just use the sugar growing area, and I come from that particular region. We have government bills that have been stuck with us for the last 50 years. Many of their machinery is aging. Yet each time there are proposals to either privatize or lease, politicians like myself and you, we take to podiums and say, oh, hatutakubali shamba yetu iende, and that is where it ends. So my question to you, Mwashako, have you sought to use the platform of parliament to understand what exactly the ministry is trying to do so as to confirm whether your fears are founded and how they can be onboarded into the conversation?
Mar,
First and foremost is to welcome you. And number two, based on the concern you raised, I think some of us and this might not be the place to say it, but because you raised it, we have in person communicated to the highest office of this land that there must be a consultative process with the leaders of the coast as per your requests, so that any fears, any concerns that relate. I come from that city, I come from that region, and we will always be there to preserve our best interest. So it's not just a question of consulting with the minister. We might have some concerns and some legitimate issues, and therefore we will make sure that a forum is made available for all of the leadership of the coast region to speak to the issue.
Mheshimiwa Catherine.
Thank you, Chair. My concern is just to the coastal leaders, especially the ladies. What is your take on the 2/3 gender rule? I really expected you to bring it out, but nothing has come. I can see Mheshimiwa Mishimbogo. I'm sure you will, in your response, touch something on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you
Don't
please
worry, you
wind
have
up
time.
2 minutes. 2 minutes, Mheshimiwa Mishi, say something in 2 minutes.
And yet, Mheshimiwa Mishi,
Yeah.
you don't have to respond, because on the one hand, we are complaining, telling you have 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and then we want to drag this on and on. This matter of the 2/3 gender rule has been so ably, Mheshimiwa Catherine, canvassed before this committee that we can
Okay.
spare a member
They have
for
not said anything about
Kisauni,
it.
because
It's
I
their
know
duty of-
she wants as many women as she can possibly get.
Mheshimiwa
Thank you.
Mashako.
Thank you, Chair. I want to respond to what Mheshimiwa Aaron has raised. Indeed, we have started a process in Parliament to pursue this issue, but understanding the delays that come with the legislative issues, we have also visited almost all offices, try to converse around this issue. But I want to say that what we're asking for is what Senator Sarai, Mheshimiwa Sarai has talked about. First and foremost, we are talking about being involved. It really defeats logic that KPA wakes up one day and puts an advert in the papers. Like the port is somewhere in the middle of the sea. There are leaders around that area. And therefore, this idea of, starting a process, then you wait for leaders to start following through. This must come to an end in this country. We must, before doing anything in a certain region, leaders need to be involved. But this is a constitutional principle. How come you just start something and then you want us now to start following the legislative processes and what have you? I think that
Thank you, Moish. I think you have ably spoken to that issue.
But if you allow, Chair, we give Mheshimiwa Mishi to say something.
Mheshimiwa Mishi, can we give you 30 seconds? Just say hi. We need to hear your voice.
Yeah, just to say good evening. My name is Honorable Mishi Boko. I'm a member of Parliament representing Likoni constituency. And I'm sorry that I'm late, but my colleagues are here. On the issue of the 2/3 gender rule, we are supporting that.
Thank you.
I've been among those who advocate for the inclusion of women in leadership. And it's not about women, it's about both gender. one time even the men are going to be endangered. So we need to have that law so that
I
at
agree
least
with
we
you,
have a
Mheshimiwa
balance.
Mishi, and I'm a testament to your continued support for women leadership. Thank you. Asanteni sana, Coast Parliamentary Group, kindly. Time is up. Time is up. Really, we have about 6 groups.
I think since they've not said anything, just allow them a minute.
No. Kindly. Thank you. Thank you. Next group is Mount Kenya jurists. And Mount Kenya jurists, you also have exactly 15 minutes. And who is the leader of Mount Kenya jurists? Who is the leader of Mount Kenya jurists? Put on the mic there. Thank you. Yokipe Mungai, you're the chair of the Mount Kenya jurists.
I'll introduce briefly. The chair is Ndego Wanjiro.
Yes.
Secretary General is Ishmael Guringa. I am a member and one of the legal advisors. We shall speak to the issues that you want to speak. There'll be 3 of us, starting with...
You have exactly 15
Precisely.
minutes. It's now 1 minute to 5. So by at 5:14,
Chair.
at 5:14, including question time, at 5:14 will be done.
Okay, we start with my colleague Fanya Mambo, followed by Ishmael. Then we shall try to be very quick so that we can cover a lot of the memorandum that we have presented.
Just go straight to the issue. Don't introduce too many issues. Go straight to it.
Thank you very much. This is Fanya Mambo Kinuthia, the organizing secretary, Mount Kenya Jurists. For us, it's very simple. I will tackle only the part on taxation. And because this has been spoken and it has been deliberated very well at this platform, I wish not to belabor, to repeat what the other people have said. But there's one thing that we have come up with as a proposal as Mount Kenya Jurists, saying that out of their 100% salary that every Kenyan gets, 70% is sacred, that no government should touch that 70%. So we want it to become a constitutional provision that you do whatever you're going to do with 30%. Even God who created the universe is only asking for 10% from us. It's because he knows there's a limit. And you know, God hasn't changed for thousands of years. He's still taking 10% from the world. Na by the way, tunapeleka kwa hiari yetu. He's not forcing us. So we are saying that subsequent governments need to be aware that Kenyans are at a point where they feel that 30% is enough. And any administration that is not okay with 30% should leave office for those people who are okay with taking less than 30% taxation from Kenyans. Secondly, on the same issue, you see our constitution provides for freedom from servitude. If you read today's standard, Kenyans have become slaves in their own country because some of them are taking less than 30% of what they worked for. And let me tell you, there is an administration that thinks that every time you want to build anything as a government, that the resource for the building of that thing has to come from the pockets of Kenyans. And Kenyans are telling you that as a mother, if you ask a mother, the mother will tell you buying a tennis ball for my son is more important than building houses for the Kenya Kwanza administration. So Kenyans are at a point in place where they feel that their taxes are sacred. And their salaries are sacred. And 70% of what they make should go to themselves and their families. I do not want to belabor that point any further because it has been spoken and said here by very many people. But for us, it's about setting a ceiling. Beyond this, government cannot go. We are ready to give you your 20%, 25% if you are more generous.
You've done well so far, trust me. The next one.
Chair, I know that this is a committee that is suffering serious time constraints, so I just wish to address our concerns to just 2 issues. The first issue is on the limitation of boundaries. And in this,
will only address the issue of what you can call urban constituencies. And a case in point is Uasin Gishu. So what we want to say is that there is an urban population that is always disenfranchised or there is voter dilution. And when you talk of Uasin Gishu, you'll know the urban population does not have any representation because the way the county boundaries are existing, they deny them of any solid representation. The other thing that I would like to address is the issue of the protected constituencies. This is a fallacy, because if you look at these units you call constituencies, they exist within a county. And the so-called protected constituencies, especially in the Mount Kenya region, exist in counties which have the liquid population quota to form the number of constituencies that are currently existing. So if there has to be any border delimitation, then the same should be calibrated to accommodate the same number of constituencies, borrow award here, donate award there, and you remain the same number of constituencies. I believe that these committee comprises of literate people, and let me not lead through and donate the rest of the time to my team members. Thank you.
Chair, we have 5 bullet points for the remaining time in order to do justice to the long memorandum that we have done. The first issue, I think that it is fair, would be to start on the issues of the Jubilee Party. Chair, the reason why we are here as representatives of Mount Kenya jurists is that we have heard when Azimio was presenting that Jubilee Party have come before this forum. Instead of coming to speak to the issues that is facing Mount Kenya counties, they have come to say how they are being fought and rebellion cost in their people. This issue is absolutely more important than can be imagined from a constitutional perspective. Because for the first time in our country, Kenya's largest community does not have a political party that can be able to speak on its behalf. The last time, during the colonial time, during the mid-1980s, during the era of President Daniel Arap Moi, when the Kikuyu community was disenfranchised economically and politically, you had serious constitutional crises that occurred. And therefore, as our first point, the issue of purely somebody imagining that you can take Jubilee Party as the last voice that can credibly be able to speak for the people of Mount Kenya is going to have very serious repercussions in view of the fact that the discontent, and I believe you come from the area, that is boiling in central Kenya, and there is nobody to give voice to that discontent, will ultimately be dangerous to this country. And it is a reason that earlier on, you may have an attempt that when discontent boils, young people will start to be called Mungiki, and you'll have another round of extrajudicial executions that have occurred previously in this country. That's point one. So it's a damn serious issue, whether we have anybody speaking for us. Issue number two is this: the fact that for purposes of having a country, Kenya, when you speak about all these issues that you are talking about, audit of presidential elections and all these other issues, it boils down to one simple issue. And that simple issue is this, that in Kenya we have head of state, commander-in-chief, and head of government. Ultimately, in any country, it is the fidelity of the presidents to the constitutions that avoids this mandamano and ensures the country is being governed competently and to avoid financial collapse that has occurred in Ghana, Sri Lanka, and even Haiti. In saying this, we have this in mind, that if we continue to have the current trajectory, in which, for example, you do an elections in the year on the 9th of August last year. So you are president because of the vote outcome on the 9th of August last year. If on the 9th of August last year, the gazetted elections results was that Azimio party was a majority, then it is a moment for introspections by the president. On what basis could members have been sponsored to ensure that Kenya Kwanza would get an artificial majority in parliament, and to get its own founder member, Honorable Wetangula, declare that that Kenya Kwanza, which was a minority according to the elections, is ultimately the majority in Kenya. It is our submission as Mount Kenya jurist that if those election results could simply be accepted and respected, it would be possible for this country to be governed on the basis of the actual outcome of the elections. Point number 3, and this is very important for the Mount Kenya people, the issue of resource allocations. The issue of resource allocation, and it touches our heart, that we are yet to see an elected leader from Mount Kenya speaking about this very serious issue. We have had the people dying on queues. We have had the situations where Mount Kenya counties people for bursary are getting 2,000, when other people are educating, and these are personal friends from Northern Kenya. People are taking children to colleges in Kenya and even outside on government scholarship. This issue, Madam Chair, must be addressed in 2 perspectives. Perspectives number 1 is that on the issues of counties, and there are some proposals that have been made on how new counties are going to be created. We have, in these proposals, we have 1 county from Mount Kenya. This is Nyambene. If you go by that proposal, that there is only 1 county that is going to come from Mount Kenya, 2 things will happen. We share money in Kenya under the constitution based on the number of counties that any community have. So we are running the danger that because of an apparent quietness of the elected leaders of Mount Kenya, you will have a situations in which new counties will be created to 60 or whatever number it's going to be, and Mount Kenya will only have Nyambene. So we have made a proposal in our write-up to ensure that there are additional counties created from Mount Kenya. Perspective number 2 is on what we called the difficulty. If you have a situations where in Mount Kenya counties, no new counties are created, under the presidential elections rules, it will not be possible to viably get a presidential candidate from Mount Kenya because of the simple rules that you must get 25% in half of the counties. And there will also be the additional issue that in the Senate, despite being the largest community, people like Somalis may end up having greater voice than Kenya's largest community before the Senate. So it's a serious issue that needs to be taken. The last 2 points are these. Madam Chair, I have a reputation.
You have 3 minutes.
I will try to do my best, but let me just make these 2 points.
Without questions.
Yes.
3 minutes, and we have not yet sought any
That's the issue.
questions.
You can avoid the questions.
Oh, we don't just, we also seek clarification.
Yes, Chair, but you have discretion. If it is very important, you'll ask questions. The 2 other issues that we need to add to this particular issue is the big issue of Article 43. I mentioned that not because we don't have other important things, but because I have in recent past done several petitions arising from Article 43 of the Constitution. Article 43 is on social and economic rights. Under the constitutions of Kenya, the citizens have rights and obligations. One of the most important obligations of citizens is the obligations to pay taxes, but also the counterpart or the other side of that right is that you have a right to be treated differently from an economic standpoint when you are citizens of Kenya. Arising currently from the point of view of the people of Mount Kenya, we we have seen very serious incidences in which the whole of Kabukunji, the whole of River Road, and the whole of this trading center or in central Kenya are dying. Where are they dying? Because the government of the day is increasingly making policies that these so-called hustlers who supported it are making it very difficult for them to live their lives in dignity, to support their businesses, and to be able to engage themselves. And therefore, it will be important, and I offer in this regard, to do even a supplementary memorandum, that certain laws that makes it possible for the Chinese and other foreigners to thrive in Kenya need to be amended so that we can be able to cure the problems that is boiling up in central Kenya, that sooner or later, youth may be called Mungiki in order to, that this problem does not come out. Final point is on what I called the risk, and I wish this committee succeeds. Why? If this committee does not succeed, the chances of this country falling into a very serious constitutional crisis is very high. Haiti could become a joke. Why do I say this? And please listen to me, Chair, for 2 minutes. I said this.
No, Kibe.
I need to explain that I have received a lot of money. Madam, 2 minutes, yes.
Just go straight.
I'm going straight to the issue. Those issues that I'm saying there is emerging constitutional crisis, I was paid a lot of money by Kenyan states to be
no, please keep it. Proceed.
Point one.
Proceed.
Is I was not talking to Aaron. Point one, Chair, is this. There is a legal order that was made in March 2012 to create the current constituencies and wards. That legal order is expiring or lapsing in March 2024. What that means is this, that no other elections can be able to take place in Kenya until you have a new legal order. We do not have IEBC. These are processes that must take 2 years, and under the constitutions, a new legal order must exist 1 year to the elections. So the point I am making is that there is no luxury of time, and we are careful. If we are not careful, in Haiti, the crisis patry is there because you did not have a presidential elections for whatever reasons. In Kenya, a legal jam may take you to this crisis.
We've had you.
I have
That's
2
a
points
good point.
to finish. I have 2 points to finish. On that issue, it's an important issue, Chair.
Chair,
Just 2.
But he's just made the point that the committee doesn't have the luxury of time.
Yes, but
that's why, because you understand, I want you to understand one thing. We have 7 other groups behind you who will feel so bad on us that we've kept them. And they don't get a chance to ask.
A lot. I am sure that very few constitutional lawyers have spoken before you. Let me just make 2 points.
You
just
know,
2 points.
this committee treats all Kenyans.
Can I give you 30 seconds, Kibe? 30 seconds.
The second issue.
Yes, 30 seconds, kindly.
Under the High Court judgment, it is required, and this goes to Parliament, it is required that a law be made for purposes of how we delimit locations and sublocations. Parliament has not done this, which is necessary to facilitate constituency boundaries. Final point, therefore, is this, that when we talk about the totality, Chair Lady, of all these problems that we are talking about, the economy, so many countries, we keep talking about state failure. From a constitutional point of view, state failures can be triggered by economic factors, and it can be triggered by political factors. These factors, the circumstances that will conspire to create them are already in existence in Kenya. They require competent leadership that is consultative of all Kenyans, that in the fullness of time, if it comes to biting the bullet and a government of national unity is necessary, we may have to go that route to prevent state failure or collapse in this good Republic of Kenya. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think now I'll seek clarifications, questions.
Just one.
Yes, Wandai.
Mr. Akili Kibe.
Yes.
Yeah, I hear you, and you make the case that as we speak, the Agikuyu people have got no political party that they could call their home. Is it that Jubilee Party is the party that was recognized as the home of the Agikuyu? That is one. Two, you have claimed that the elected leadership of the Kikuyu community are not speaking for their people. Okay, and therefore there's likely to be a problem in the coming days, months, or whatever. Why, in your opinion, would elected leaders of the region not speak for their people? And especially taking into consideration the fact that the second highest elected person in the ruling Kenya Kwanza government comes from the Kikuyu community.
Just okay, Senator Ron. Yeah, I just want to say this, and here I won't talk about Kikuyus, I'll talk about Gema. Is very well represented in the UDA party. They left en masse from a political party that was supposed to be their home and chose, rightfully so, to go to a party that they felt gave them a chance to be well represented. And let me put it here on record that the elected leaders in the Gema community within the Kenya Kwanza government and the UDA party are representing their electorate accordingly and raising concerns of their people. Gema people never keep quiet when things are not going well. They never keep quiet when their people have issues, and we've done so very well. Kibe, maybe you've not seen us in the streets, but we have a platform within government to raise our concerns, and we do that very, very ably. So please, don't make us look like we are in a comfort zone. We are working very, very hard for our people. The very reasons that made us leave Jubilee are the reasons we are now working very hard for our people.
Chair, I just have two clarifications that I'd wish. Is it your submission that we need to, and I listened to you, I think previously there was a group led by Wakili Ndegwa, yeah? On the position of Speaker of the National Assembly. Is it your assertion that we need to further add the qualifications for a Speaker of either the National Assembly or the Senate to limit their participation in politics? Because you appear to be faulting Speaker Moses Wetangula that he was a speaker, he was a member of Kenya Kwanza, and then he became Speaker, and you seem to find fault. Yet on all other criteria of what it takes to be elected as Speaker of Parliament, he ticks. So is it your submission then that this committee should perhaps consider limiting members who can be Speakers of Parliament to only those who haven't participated in any political activities in the run-up to the election? Question one. Question two, last one, because really in the interest of time, is to the gentleman seated to your right, Wakili.
Yes.
Have you taken time to perhaps either read or do a study on Kenya's tax to GDP ratio and how it compares to other economies or comparable jurisdictions economy-wise? How do we fare? Are we way above, below, same? Just a comment from you on that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. To start off, Chair. Yes.
Kibe, Wakili, 2 minutes. Try and just respond to those issues in 2 minutes. I know you can.
Yes. On the question of Honorable Wandai, the issues of Jubilee, numbers don't lie. A bigger portion, according to the declared figures, were in UDA in Gema country. The other people, which includes myself, about 30% of the Gema people were also in Azimio. That minority, if today, where the majority went, they are no longer getting economic justice for our people, it becomes the obligations of that minority to be able to speak for our people. That minority is represented by Jubilee. And therefore, if one wanted to ensure that a certain community cannot speak for itself, it would ensure I have the majority, now I kill the minority. So it's an existential issue for the people of that region. On the issues of leadership, why have the elected leadership? They are not speaking for the people, led by Rigiji. I believe the deputy president, whom I respect a lot, every time that opportunity has come, including the president going to Sagana and elsewhere in central Kenya, the newspapers themselves say that he was telling people, let us keep quiet, let us not raise hula baloo for the president, that is our government. Before here, unless the newspaper and the media are not stating everything, we are yet to see where Kenya is being discussed, and I challenge them. Apart from memorandum like this, which memorandum we can be shown that elected leaders have presented and said, these are the concerns of the Gema people. I have not seen it. I challenge anyone with it to lend me a copy. I represent Governor Mbarile, and she knows we have a long history. But on this, I wish, and we only hear Governor Mbarile for only one reason. I would have been very happy to be in the office doing my normal legal work. But the same people who have seen a lot of us on national television speak about community issue, when they were faced with the reality that our elected leaders are not going to present our issues when Kenya is being discussed, it was the collective wisdom of the local population. Go and say something about the problems that we are facing. So I wish you to do as much as you can now that you are co-chair, but as of now, our issues are not on the table. Aaron Cheruyot, Senator, he asked about the issues of Wetangula. Let me start by saying that I am involved in a case where his own election is being challenged. But I'll only discuss one issue because you've asked whether there is need for legal amendments. There is no need for legal amendments. My friend Hassan Omar is aware that as Speaker of the National Assembly, and even the standing order says that, the most important duty is that of impartiality. And impartiality means that it's a matter of substance and positions you have of the proceedings that are there. That as of now, and this is the last point, Speaker Wetangula has conducted himself in a manner by his rulings and decisions that impeaches his credibility and impartiality. And
thank you. I think we come to the end of this session for the
There's
team.
a question for me, 30 seconds, I can be able to respond.
Yes, yes.
Honorable Senator, you come from a region of marathoners. If they were to compare themselves with others, Kenya would never win any gold marathon. We are setting the standard as the first nation in the world to say that we have a limit as to how deep you can go into our pockets. Our salary is sacred. We do not want to get to a point where government is taking more than what we are earning. Because we said it very clearly on TV then, they can take the salaries, we take the taxes, if that's better. Secondly, I'd like to say this. The countries that they want us to compare ourselves with, there is something about ease of earning. That in those countries, like, for example, if you moved to the US today and you started cleaning rooms, you are certain that you can get an equivalent of, for example, 10,000 shillings every day. It is consistent, it is there, you just need to wake up and you will make it tomorrow as long as you work. In this country, the biggest job that people do in industrial area is looking for work, not actually working. Finally, on the same, there's something called black tax that is most of the times found in our African countries. And black tax means, like, if I'm a firstborn, there's a very high chance I'm going to educate all the other siblings who follow me. In those countries we want to compare ourselves with, their governments are so responsible, they have taken care of their people so well that there is no this other black tax. Because even if we pay this 30%, if we give you the 30% we are saying, still in my cup of tea, you reach for the water, you reach for the tea leaves, you reach for the milk, you reach for everything. taxable thing in my cup of tea. By the time I'm done with that cup of tea, it was a cup of taxes. So not only are we paying 70%, but not only are we paying more than 30% in taxation, the little that we are left with, government is still reaching for it through fuel and other means. By the time you go home, you have nothing left.
Thank you. Senator Aaron, you want to say something?
No, just briefly to ask Wakili to take time to read about tax to GDP ratio, because that is not what I asked you about.
I can answer you.
No, just
I actually want to end this conversation. Kindly.
I doubt that you can.
Oh, I can.
Thank you.
That you can.
Thank you. Another time you can have a cup of tea. You can have a cup of tea on that conversation. I now seek to have the next online, and we have civil society reference group.
That's it. CPF.
I think we need to give them time, please. We have got only 15 minutes. The civil society reference group.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Suba Churchill in this capacity as Executive Director of the Kenya National Civil Society Center and also the President of the Umbrella Civil Society Reference Group. I'm also in the company of one of our members, the Consumer Grassroots Association, that will be speaking to issues of cost of living, and then I'll pick it up from the second point around electoral issues. Karibu.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Alice Kemto from Consumer Grassroots Association. And I'm only going to tackle one issue, even though we know that consumer issues are quite a lot. I'm going to tackle the issue of the cost of living. And the Constitution of Kenya 2010 lays the foundation for public participation, recognizing the principles of governance and emphasizes the importance of involving citizens in matters affecting them. And in any democracy, the voice of the people is a powerful force guiding the actions and decisions in government, in any governance and the decisions that the government takes in day-to-day guides. And but when it comes to our case, I'm only summarizing because we are going to give you a written submission. In the Kenya scenario, the opposite is what is happening. In Kenya, we boast so well when we go out, we say, you know, we are a democracy, we have multi-parties, and we do election after every 5 years, but that's not enough. What do you do when it comes to involving citizens in governance, citizens in making decisions? How do you do that? A case in point that you're bringing on board is the issue of the Finance Bill 2023. We were so shocked as consumers and the citizens of Kenya that even after reaching out to citizens and citizens says no to areas of the finance bill, the government went ahead and passed that bill. Then where is our space as citizens of this country? Where is our space as consumers of in Kenya? Where is our space? Where is our voice? And yet the Constitution is very clear. We've been given that provision that we have we have a right to voice what we feel is not going on right. Under the Article 46 of the Constitution, Consumer Protection Act of 2012 and the Competition Act of 2010. If you read together, you realize that there's a lot that is written that's protecting the consumers. But when it comes to action, actually the government does the opposite. And we are here to submit that going forward, we need to listen to the voice of the people. When people say this is not the way we need to go, please don't sit there and say this is what you feel is right for the people. Now, coming to the cost of living, there's an outcry from consumers that the cost of living is quite high, that people can hardly take anything home for their children. And now the government is going even further to ensure that they have people who are working, I don't know, instead of having extension officers and or having people that are going from house to house, the community health volunteers, now we are having people from KRA walking around. You want to take each and every bit from consumers until consumers are asking themselves, is this really our country? Is this a government that was voted in to protect us? Is this the country that we really want to live in? So as consumer grassroots associations, we pride ourselves to be the voice of the people, and we are a member organization of 10 more consumer organizations. We call ourselves the COC, and we thank this group for giving us an opportunity to come and present the issues that we have here before you. We have our recommendations, straight to recommendations. We want to work closely with government as a civil society organization, that's consumer organizations, to sensitize consumers on their rights and obligations. And this has to be funded by government. If there could be a provision in the law to ensure that consumer organizations are funded just like political parties are funded, just like other areas of governance are funded or other entities are funded, we also get consumer representatives to be funded, and there should be a law to that. And number two, we want a platform where citizens can engage the duty bearers openly, that they can air out without being criminalized. And number three, would want to work closely with the duty bearers also. Yes, we want to work closely with the duty bearers to ensure that those gaps that are there in the Constitution are filled well. So that when you don't just wake up one morning and say, today I want to add tax on this, today I want to increase the cost of fuel, today I want to do this, not adding a penny even to the salaries of those that you are taxing. It's really painful. And for most of us, I know the speakers that spoke before us have really talked a lot, but for most of us, we know the kind of communities that we come from. It pains a lot that the government can sit as if it's in another planet and the citizens are in another planet. So yours is just to go and just pick and take. It really pains, and this is really making the families and also those who are being depended on to be overwhelmed as a team. As a consumer grassroots association, I know we represent so many other consumers, and there are so many areas that we could talk about, but we chose to talk on that specific area. And since we are an umbrella organization of this working group, I think my colleague is going to pick up on other areas. And if you have any question, we are going to pick up on that and be respond to those questions. But finally, I just want to say, we want a government that involves us to participate in everything. We want transparency from government. We want timely responses from government. Not that when we have the petitions, some of them are just put in garbage and the dustbins, and they are not taken care of. Can we treat consumers in this country with some sort of dignity and with some sort of respect, because they matter a lot? And we want effective oversight. Empower us to oversight you, just as you oversight the the executive. And finally, we just want to say that it was really an embarrassment when the Finance Bill 2023 was passed. We were so embarrassed as consumer representatives, and we look forward for a change because we are here to correct each other. We are not here to throw stones. We want to tell government what should be done, and the government should also listen to us and please bring us on board. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Suba, you have got, not yet. Suba, you have got 5 minutes remaining.
5 only, that's okay. Let me see what I can do with that. But going straight to the second issue, which is electoral justice and related matters. As I was walking in, there were questions with respect to the authenticity of figures that have been made in claims and counterclaims. And I remember that the DCI, on its own motion, initiated investigations into the authenticity of figures that were being shared around. I think it is within the powers of this National Dialogue Committee to summon the DCI and ask him how far he has gone with those investigations. As a state officer, he must be held to account. He wrote to the chief officer of the election management body, and I think he owes it to Kenyans to tell us why he stopped or why he has slowed down or how far he has gone, because there could be a possibility that he was told to stop. Is it because it would require opening of servers to ascertain the veracity of those figures? And it would be important for this committee to want to know how the DCI spend public resources on that. Because as a civil society organization, and more so as one who has observed elections in 28 countries in Africa for the African Union, I want to believe, and it is provided for in the Constitution, that elections be audited, unless there is anybody who knows something that the rest of us do not know. Secondly, there's been an argument based on frustrations by a number of Kenyans as to whether Kenya's election management body should be temporary or permanent. It is the view of the Civil Society Reference Group and the Kenya National Civil Society Center that looking at the heavy tasks that fall within the purview of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, that we can only have a permanent election management body for this country. In any case, co-chairs, it is significant to also outline the fact that some of our elected members have not been lucky enough to serve out their full terms, have been unfortunate to lose their lives either through accidents or ill health. And time and again, the election management body is called upon to conduct by elections to fill in those constituencies. So we root for a permanent election management body. Secondly, with respect to the election management body and restructuring, we think that the current manner in which the incumbent president, the overbearing role that the president plays in the appointment of the different bodies that are responsible for the appointment of the panel, gives the incumbent an overbearing role and influence in the constitution of the commission. And we therefore call on this commission to call for the immediate disbandment of the current panel as currently constituted. Because if you look at all those commissions, whether it's the Public Service Commission, the different commissions that appoint the panelists, all of them have their leaderships appointed by the sitting president. And you can therefore not, turn a blind eye to the fact that, the current mechanism where a panel was established on the basis of, being appointed by commissions that are themselves appointed by the sitting president, gives an incumbent who in most cases is also a candidate in presidential elections, an overbearing role, and that needs to be structured we think that as a country, whereas the IBC is crafted as independent, the current IBC is only independent in name. The reality is that the IBC is controlled and manipulated and has lent itself to manipulation by the powers that be. And if you are in doubt, all you need to read is Isaac Hassan's book, where he narrates how he went out of his way. And he has the audacity to document that in his memoir, how he went about looking for people who could serve as CEO of the election management body, how he tapped certain people. Yet, publicly, he advertised the position. Many Kenyans applied thinking that, IBC is an equal and opportunity employer. Yet, in Isaac's own book, he documents how,
Suba, I think your time is really running out.
I know.
So go to the issue.
Yeah, so I'm saying that whereas the intention of those of us, and Honorable Marina, you remember how we co-chaired the Technical Committee on Citizenship and the Bill of Rights here at the Bomas of Kenya in 2003 and 2004. We think that Kenya does not, at the moment, is not ready for the kind of commission that we have. We are therefore calling for a mixed model. And in a mixed model, there are basically three types of electoral commissions. There's the independent model, the mixed model, and the government model. What we have in the current constitution that purports to be an independent model is actually a government model. And I've already illustrated how the current law that the president ascended to earlier in this year gives the incumbent sweeping powers to influence who becomes the commissioner. As a matter of fact, I can tell you some of the people that would have been commissioners had this process gone on. We know them, and we know who called them to apply. And that is normally what happens with all constitutional commissions. And so we are calling for a mixed model where key political actors play a role. Pundits of the 2022 elections have sought to advance the view that the last elections were the fairest, the freest, and most credible. I can tell you without fear of contradiction that having been an election observer in 28 African countries, the 2002, in my view, remains in Kenya's memory as the most free and fair elections. And there was a formula to that because the political parties had a say in who constituted the commission then. It is my submission, therefore, that we revert to that model until such a time when our institutions, including constitutional commissions, would be strong enough, because as a country, we must admit that we have not been able to identify people with strong characters can withstand the pressures that come from those wielding state power. And I've already given you the example where Isaac Hassan, in his book,
I think now we'll go to questions.
Mentions that.
We'll go to questions.
Lastly, Chair, and I would seek your indulgence, because we co-chaired with you the Committee on Citizenship. The right to protest, to assemble, to picket and present presentations. We are in all this as a result of protests. And it pains me when people in authority want to create the impression that we can only protest when they so wish. And we have seen how they do it. In regions that are perceived to be pro-government, people are at liberty to protest. In regions that are perceived to be anti-government, people are not even allowed to step out of their homes and are actually killed and maimed in their humble abodes. We are saying that this committee has a duty to recognize that because we are in this process because of recent protests, that we must not just read about the right to protest in Article 37, but must amend the Public Order Act, and specifically Section 5, that says there shall be no public protest except in accordance with this law. Yet, that is a law that was passed way back by the colonialists to restrain us from removing them from our own country. I do not think that that law is relevant,
Suba.
and I think that we needed to. Lastly, the very last chair.
I think, Chair.
Suba, you're putting me in a tight
I think,
spot.
Chair.
Now you must stop.
Chair.
I understand, and we have been patient. I was to appear before you at 2. So reciprocate my patience also, Chair. With the
30 seconds, Suba, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, and I'm looking at my watch.
Exactly. I would have failed in my responsibility and appearance here if I did not raise the attention of the committee to a law that was passed by the 12th Parliament and assented to by the late Mwai Kibaki, the fourth president of this republic, the third. On 13th of February 2013, that law is called the Public Benefits Organizations Act and was meant to repeal the NGO Coordination Act. For the entire period that Jubilee, that a number of you are part of, was in power for 10 years, they sat on that law claiming that it is the civil society that took them to The Hague. The Kenya Kwanza administration, in its manifesto, promised to implement the Public Benefit Organizations Act. It is more than a year since the Kenya Kwanza came to power. That law has not been implemented. The NGO sector tracks to this economy 180 billion in the last financial year, more than this Kenya's gold that we see on TV, tea and coffee combined. Add even, Maua and so on from Naivasha. It doesn't compare.
Thank
so
you.
we are calling on
Thank
this
you.
committee to pick up this issue.
Thank you.
And remind the Kenya Kwanza administration that a promise is a debt and it must be paid.
Thank you, Suba. Yes, Senator.
Thank you. I want to thank the presenter. I have a question for him, one or two. He speaking to the issue, Suba, of the various models for appointing IBC commissioners. You say there is a government model, the independent, and a mixture of the two. It is your argument then that the current model, according to you, and I don't agree with you, is a government model. But then I want to say, if it is a government model, then it must be a very good model, because if a government model can result in the loss of an election by the government of the day, then isn't it such a good model? Because what else will you be looking for other than a commission that, according to you, is appointed by government of the day, but still goes ahead to conduct an election where that government loses? Isn't that what we are looking for? Second and last question to him, Chairperson. I have listened to you on the issue of demonstrations. Perhaps you will help us, because there are two contestations. When you listen to people that speak like you, either on your side or from the side of our colleagues across the table, on the right to picket and demonstrate, they feel as if it is a right that is absolute with no limitation, despite the fact that in going about your duties or your demonstration and picketing, sometimes you interfere with the rights of other Kenyans. What is the nexus, or at what point should government seek to interfere so as to ensure that as you go about your rights, you don't interfere with the rights of other Kenyans? Because you have pointed out and said that there are certain regions where demonstrations are allowed. And I'll point to you a simple example. When the Nyamakima traders wanted to present a petition to Parliament earlier on this year, I saw them. Where I sit in my office is on the first floor Parliament building. And they came, made all the noise that they could, and were allowed to present that petition. Later on, when there have been subsequent demonstrations, there have been confrontation. And when you ask, why is it the case? He says, for example, the demonstrators that are being interfered with are stopping about those who want to go about their duties. If there's a car and they have blocked the road, they don't allow them to drive. They pickpocket other people. Therefore, what mechanisms have other jurisdictions, as you've said, you're a well-traveled man, have they put in place to ensure that citizens of those countries enjoy these rights and they live freely together? Those who want to picket, those who don't want, they mix so that you have a beautiful country, because that's a picture that you want to paint for us. It will be good to hear from you on that.
And perhaps even as he continues, you said that you've you have monitored elections in many African countries. Actually, you mentioned 28. It was mentioned earlier by Felix that between 1992 to 2022, The only time there were no issues after elections was 2002. Do you see a constant political factor in all those elections, and what do you deduce out of it? Constant election factor, political factor in all those elections, and only one was peaceful, free, and fair. Is it possible that elections are only free and fair when a particular person wins?
Or is not on the ballot? And then just to support, to advance that, what particularly Senator Cheriot said, listening to some of the presentations made, especially those that appear to be casting aspersions on the victory of Kenya Kwanza, including the just concluded presentations from part of our coalition adversaries. A government that is probably one of the strongest units in our history, of a sitting president and one of the senior most opposition leader in the country, is beaten in every aspect, from tallying to collection of results, to declaration, to monitoring, to every aspect, then I can tell you without a doubt that election is either foolproof or that government was too whatever. Number two, to Kemuntu, I used to have a lot of contempt for politicians when I was in the civil society. So much contempt until the day I ran for an election. It is so hard to get elected. These people face unforetold perils in the search for those votes. Nyoro is just right there behind you. He'll tell you how hard it is to get elected. I myself am testimony, especially if you're running in a place which is not a stronghold. They are members of parliament for whatever they are worth. They represent us in parliament. They have spoken to these bills and made them law. At what point are the citizens heard? Because I think these are institutions of government that work side by side. There are processes that are put together. So why would you think that that MP, even in the minority, we could just say that these are majoritarian, and therefore all of us now go for demonstrations. We don't accept these taxes. To hell with all the institutions that we created.
Suba?
Yes, thank you very
2
much.
minutes?
Yes, yeah. First of all, I want to say that the common factor in all these elections where there have been issues is rigging and manipulation of the vote. Rigging and manipulation of the vote.
By the way,
not even the
Suba,
person you are talking about.
so that we can deal with Omar and my sister here, this one constant factor they keep on talking about. They should realize, just for their benefit, that the Supreme Court in its wisdom in 2017 agreed with that one factor.
Exactly.
In that one instance.
So that you be fair.
In that one
I don't think
instance.
we're here. These issues are so big. Yeah, I was the running mate in 2013 and 2017. I can tell you that we beat the government side.
Exactly.
All right? Well, this is why we're here, to deal with stolen elections, the culture of stolen elections. If we keep on aggrandizing ourselves on how easy, how difficult the whole thing was. I mean, Suba, you should not feel intimidated. Speak the truth.
Suba, I wouldn't intimidate you. You're
I
my
can't
chairman.
be intimidated.
You are my chairman.
I was your chair in the students' government. You were
That
my
was your vice chair, yes.
And then we co-chaired the technical committee. But the point I want to make, and in response to what Hassan has said a bit in a low tone, in the 2002 elections that you seem to be referring to, the gentleman you seem to be referring was not even a candidate. Yet elections were free and fair, and everybody accepted them as such. And so I want to demonstrate to you that if we could avoid, and you see, there is this notion that the current president was not in government. Yet he earned salary as deputy president up to the month of September. I mean, who recruited the Chebukatis of this world? No. I can tell you the intrigue. Chebukati was second last. How he even became chair of the commission is a mystery that we need to investigate. In all recruitment processes, the top three can do the job. How did the second last person become the chair? That is the manipulation that happened.
Maybe you can furnish us with
And
that
that
report.
is the openness we want in the recruitment process moving forward.
Report that Chebukati was last in the second last.
Second last, and we know even the points. If you want me to tell you,
furnish us with that report.
we know even the points.
Furnish us with that report. In fact, we hold you to that. We will wait for that report.
We know even the figures.
Yeah, well, later your report.
And we know even how people say, this Akombe, how good do you think she is? We know even the debates that went on. And so don't tempt us.
I'm tempting. Oh, we are tempting you to bring that report.
Super, don't also try and intimidate us. And I want to kindly request.
Of the civil society will not get you anywhere.
Excuse me, sorry. I kindly want to request that we don't go the route we are going.
Exactly.
Because I don't think
peddling unsubstantiated.
yeah. So Suba,
Yes.
I know you can be a real politician. Please be a civil society
Chair.
professional right now.
Chair.
Avoid getting into politics.
Yeah.
Yes.
We could equally come here and peddle all manner of stories about what we know or what we know in the sense of what Suba is saying about what happened to Chebukati. But we have chosen to rise above that. We want to stick to issues. I want to request him to please spare us the innuendos and the stories that we hear outside there.
Aaron, as we do so, because this is a serious engagement, let us avoid demonizing. Because I've listened to Omar over time saying one constant factor, another constant factor. I want you to know one of those factors has been sitting here with you. Because as a running mate to Raila in 2013 and in 2017, okay? And I know you were my Secretary General.
You considered the election of 2007 and you Peter Katikati up.
No, that's a different thing.
Kindly finish one minute.
Of course I did. It's a fact I did, and I said to your country.
Kindly, Suba, finish.
You know, when you stop being childish, Omar, we'll make progress.
Hassan, let's
don't get angry, sir.
Okay, let's Hassan.
So you'll never be governor of Mombasa. I can give it to you.
That's why
now this is going
president of Kenya. I can give it to you.
I think my session.
Hassan, I kindly request that you contain yourself. Hassan, kindly.
I mean, let me.
Hassan, kindly.
Let's
stop attacking right now.
Co-chair.
Cannot come here and also start to intimidate us.
Co-chair, I beg.
Be governor here, governor there. You will also never be president.
Kindly, Hassan, kindly. We've done so well.
Everybody, I'm so ashamed that at one time he was Secretary General of my party. I really apologize.
No, I now want to beg kindly that the two of you now kindly, I beg you, stop what you're doing. Let Super Churchill have his last minute so we can move to the next one. Kindly. I beg you.
I wanted to respond to issues relating to the protests. Now, quite often, and the model. Now, you talked about the model. Yes.
And may I kindly request that the exchange be expunged from the Hansard, kindly.
I've said that there are three different election management body models. There is the independent, there's the governmental, and the mixed model. In countries that have developed, that have overgrown the culture of theft of the vote that is so rampant in this country, they don't care about government officials running the elections. And that's what happens in countries like the United States of America, in Finland, and so on. People have trust in institutions. I've said that our election management body, that is appropriately called Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, is only independent in name. But as soon as they are appointed, they lend themselves to manipulation by the state. And that's why I've said, because we seem not to have strong personalities of the kind of that led the first constitutional commission, the first generation of constitutional commissions were led by people of impeccable and strong character. We seem to be losing those commissions as days go by. And that is why, in my view, and considered view as an election observer for many years, I want to plead with this committee to consider restoring peace in our electoral process by enabling political actors to have a say, not just in the appointment of the panel, but in the commissions themselves. Because as the 2002 election has demonstrated, and which we all celebrated, for the first time, I was in Kondele monitoring elections. The people of Kondele went to the street, not to throw stones, but to celebrate Kibaki.
Maybe
we need to consider that, so that
we've had you, Suba.
Lastly, on the gender issue.
Yes.
You know, you and I were here at Bomas. The constitution, the draft constitution that we adopted had a different electoral system. It is that electoral system that goes with the 2/3 gender principle. When Abdikadir Mohammed and company went to Naivasha, they changed the electoral system without revisiting the principles. It is my submission that, looking at the memorandum that His Excellency the President William Ruto sent to the two chambers of parliament, looking at the proposals here to entrench position of leader of official opposition and that of prime cabinet secretary, there is a yearning for a parliamentary